LL Nation, what's good? Lucky Lefty Podcast. I'm your boy Shaun Davis at SD2 Mics. Of course, the original Lucky Lefty himself, Malik Zaire. We are brought to you by Onora Whisky. OnoraWhisky.com is that premium American whiskey. OnoraWhisky.com. And if you drink, by all means, make sure you drink
responsibly.
Yo, man, we went to the desert and we did what we knew we were going to do. Question of the day: are you entertained? Are you impressed yet? Are you confident in this team yet? It's funny because I watched this game and finished up the night watching the next foe that comes into South Bend this weekend and thought that they were going to be coming in on a high until the last 5 minutes of that game. And then I was like, well, should dominate them too. They're about to give up the rope. We'll get to that. Former Notre Dame linebacker Pete Bercich joins the show. We had him briefly over the summer for about 5 minutes just to talk about a subject that we were dealing with, but he joins us for a good minute on the Players Lounge today, brought to you by Onora Whisky. Then we'll get into just the game itself, but I want to start off by giving a look and opportunity to tell everyone what it was like in Vegas, just being around the fan base. Man, I saw so many Instagram posts, Twitter posts, social media buzzing from Thursday through Sunday. Seems like Notre Dame and ND Nation took over the Strip this weekend.
Oh, yeah. It was all green and blue out there.
So tell me, what was your favorite part, bro?
So what I really liked about the experience, just to see how for it to be Vegas, this is not anywhere near South Bend.
Right.
That's just a strong presence of Notre Dame throughout the entire Strip. Not only that, I mean, you didn't get to see too many BYU people out because it was just so much green. There was things going on all weekend, events everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere where you wouldn't see somebody that was Irish. And that's in Vegas. That's an international hub of a lot of different things going on. Mm-hmm. But one thing, that Notre Dame game was in town. The events were great. And then the game itself, I mean, was electric. That was my first time being in the Raiders Stadium. It was amazing. I mean,
stadium is awesome, bro. That stadium is amazing.
Legit. And then to see the game and how the fans reacted, being in the stands as opposed to on the field, it was good to be a fan that day, and a great environment, man. Just soaking it all in. A lot of great connects as well.
I love the option given to Notre Dame players. Like you said, you were in the stands. I also saw Notre Dame players on the sideline during the game. I think it's beautiful. You know, I love sideline access being given to the players, which is a stark contrast to what has existed recently at Notre Dame and at Notre Dame football games, particularly the Shamrock Series. Shout out to Manti Te'o, who did the pregame, postgame, halftime show on NBC. Manti was absolutely phenomenal. They can go ahead and substitute him for Jason Garrett right now, like flat out. Just substitute him for Jason Garrett right now. The Jason Garrett continues to struggle. Continues to struggle with names. Do they struggle with down and distance? It's right now the broadcast is one. Isn't Mike Mayock free now? Didn't he get fired?
I'm free.
Yeah, heck yeah. You're free. I mean, by all means, please.
Why not? At least I know the team.
Man, it's crazy. But yeah, the environment was dope. Even talking to the recruits. Let me tell you something. I've never had an issue talking to recruits before, during, and after a game. Two of my guys I talk to a lot, Cam Williams, 24 wide receiver, and Drake Bowen, linebacker, right, from 23 class. These cats didn't even respond to my questions. They were hitting me with emojis, dog. Like, you know, Drake is cordial. Yes, sir. gives you nice answers, writes back. Man, I was texting him after the game. That dude hit me with the fire emoji. Like, what? I asked him another question. He hit me with the heart emoji. And then I thought, they're in Vegas, dog.
Yeah.
Like, dude, they ain't got time. Like, they don't want to talk about anything. Like, let them experience. Because they were superstars. I think ND Nation, the one thing that stood out, as I did get a chance to talk to Drake on yesterday, the one thing that stood out is that how much love they receive and how shocked some of them were that the fan base knew who they were and followed them. It was kind of shocking.
That's an underrated thing now.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of shocking for a kid like Cam Williams, like, oh, you want to take a picture with me? Like, all right. So it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope experience. And I could pick up quickly, like, wait a minute, these cats hitting me with emojis. Let me leave them alone. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like 8 o'clock on the strip. The high school kids, probably with full access, right? Talking to coaches, taking pictures with fans, experiencing everything in Vegas. And they're a group. They sat together, a group of like 10 of them. I told them, man, safe travels.
Yeah.
I'll holler at you when you get back. Don't even worry about it. That lets you know just how special everything was. Cam Williams said something. He said, man, he's just looking around the stadium. Because I believe for a college football game, this game broke the attendance record at Allegiant. Notre Dame and BYU.
Yeah, I could tell it was packed everywhere.
And just the atmosphere was just like, Cam Williams was like, South Bend is one thing, but to see the fan base this far away from South Bend represent the way they did. And he said the BYU fans in there were loud as well. He was like, man, the overall environment was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the environment was sick because at the end of the day, the Shamrock Series is becoming something that's a staple in each season to where you just want to be there. It's the place to be. It's the game that everybody kind of, circles on their calendar because not so much of the opponent, but just of what everything is involved in Vegas or at the Shamrock Series, wherever the city is. I think it's cool too because it gives you more of a professional football vibe. Being at the Raiders Stadium, it's just like an NFL Sunday. You had the tailgate, you had everybody everywhere. I'm sure Notre Dame made a lot of money with Vegas just on the hotels alone. I know they got to cut it at somewhere.
Yeah.
I know they had to get a cut of that because all the big time investors came out, so they probably gave them the nice suite. ND put a little interest on that thing. You know what I'm saying, to get a couple rooms or whatever. But man, I know that it's good to see Notre Dame be able to go to different cities, especially professional cities, and be able to bring money to and make money in those places as well outside of Notre Dame. How many teams do you know that can go do that?
Man, so incredible weekend. Expected win. Let's start with this because I want to go back to what we said Friday, bro. We both sat here because your prediction was that Notre Dame would score in the 40s. My prediction was Notre Dame would score in the 30s. But we both said somehow, some way, we're going to come back on Monday and feel like they should have scored 50. And I felt they're going to leave points on the field. Consistently, we feel like Notre Dame leaves points on the field. 28-20 win over BYU. And once again, we sit here Monday feeling like we left points on the field. And the scoreboard was not indicative of really how much Notre Dame dominated this ball game.
Yeah, it wasn't indicative, but I think we're a team that, just through the years of honest evaluation, we're just a team that really plays to win. We're not looking to play to dominate necessarily our opponent on every snap, but we have the ability and talent to get a win when we need it. And it may not always be pretty, but we're a team that finds ways to win. Now, when you're playing teams that are as equally talented to us, it usually tends to be a different story. But teams that were
Mm.
more talented than uh, we just never been the team to just be like, oh, we're just going to go out there and roll over you. It's more of we're just going to find ways to win. It's just a weird thing. I don't we act as if we're the underdog in each game with better talent. So I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic because it's hard to be the underdog when you're better than the team on paper. So I think for us, finding ways to win, this is no different uh, in this game, but also leaving all those points on the field shows you what having a quarterback that's dynamic that can put those points up when you need them. But I think overall, I mean, we had a good showing. It was a win. We take a win how we get it, and it was a great time doing it.
Lucky Lefty podcast, Shaun Davis, Malik Zaire. Coming up in a few moments, Pete Bercich, former Notre Dame linebacker, joins us each and every Monday. We have the Players Lounge. He joins us today, fresh off calling that Bears debacle against the Vikings on yesterday. We'll ask him about that and get into one of the most controversial positions over the last 2 years. He knows linebacker play, and we're going to flat out ask him, like, yo, what's going on? From the stands, bro, did the defense, because it's not about just one player, but it just seems like every time JD Bertrand touches the field, bro, just bad things start happening for the defense. Right? He comes back the second half, all of a sudden North Carolina starts making big plays. He comes back second half BYU, all of a sudden it's like I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to blame it on him, but once again, linebacker play subpar. They didn't have Howard Cross due to an injury. Jacob Lacey decided to transfer. So you can say they could compromise a little bit on the interior. I'll give it to BYU. The smartest thing they did is they came out and said they expect us to pass, so we're going to try and run the ball against them, and they were successful a little bit early. But other than that, we gave the stat that Jaron Hall before this game against pressure struggled mightily. I think his QBR was something like 55. Completion percentage was below 50%. So Notre Dame came into the game committed to get pressure on the quarterback and to affect him. They did that very well in the first half, keeping him shut down and keeping those receivers, Romney and Akuma, that came back. That was their first time being on the field at the same time. I thought the defense, once again, man, it's the same song, right? They play so well, but then it's this pocket of a couple of series or 10 minutes or so where you just scratch your head like, what was that? Another safety blitz from 10 yards away. Like you're like, that's a blitz for NFL schemes, man.
For a guy, for a dude that's got 4-4 ability,
Exactly.
number one draft pick. Kind of thing.
And once again, you're zoning behind and you leave a big hole. They get the big play to get back in the game. They're down on the goal line, 3rd and 17. They concede and go for a draw. Nobody wants to tackle the running back. Just stuff like that. It's like, man, as well as they were playing, you get a play like that, and if you feel like it almost erases the majority of all the good that they had built up to that point.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think you're adjusting to the melding between a scheme that's more advanced with guys that are not as talented. I think as the years will go on, the scheme will meld towards more talented recruits like what we're expecting to get in these next
Mm.
years. So I think there's like a transition phase within that, being able to have guys buy in and understand on a 2 to 3 year level instead of a first year level. The depth issue where leaving big holes can be closed, with more experience in running that defense. I mean, this is still a uh first year system that we're trying to slowly take it to our own, especially Al Golden. With all the knowledge he has, he's probably like, how do I condense it for a college level for these guys to go play at a high level? But with that same transitions, we've seen a lot of good things happen as well. You've seen us hold teams that are high scoring offenses to half of what they usually get. So it's some positives and it's some things that we're working on. But overall, I'm really happy with just how we're able to continue to fight and get better. I saw some improvements offensively. I saw Jaden Thomas get in there and mix it up, which is what we've been clamoring for at the beginning of the season. And it's good to see the ball get spread around a lot more. Michael Mayer is still the most important player on our team, which which is evident and is much.
Man,
And without him, we probably really wouldn't be winning games like we are now. So we're coming right into where we need to be as a unit, as a Notre Dame football team.
yo, we can just go ahead and transition to 87. That was a man. That was a man amongst boys on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You hear me? You hear me?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why it took until halftime for BYU to adjust. They're like, you just gonna let him go 1-on-1 the whole first
the
half?
whole first half. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, we can stick him with a smaller guy. No, you can't.
No, you can't. He's just too
No, you
big.
can't. No, you can't. All right. And shout out to Drew Pine for, you know, well, before I get to this, I can't get to that point without saying, look, this offensive line, let me tell you something. Harry Heastam is cementing. This offensive line looks 10 times better than anything we saw from the offensive line last year.
Yeah,
And it's pretty much the same dudes.
pretty much.
10 times better. 10 times better. It's Harry Heastam talked about they're starting to play better together. They're starting to play better together. It's not about the individual parts. It's about how we play together. And you're starting to see that. They didn't have as many rushing yards as they did against North Carolina. But man, the pass protection, Drew Pine had all day
All day.
to throw the football, bro.
That's
All
right.
day. All day. And that gave him the opportunity to wait for Michael Mayer to come across the field and do what he had to do and be open. But you give Drew Pine credit. Given the opportunity, he's taken advantage of the opportunity and the blessing of the improved offensive line in front of him. That's it. That's all you can ask. That's all we ask from him.
Oh
220,
yeah.
2 touchdowns every week. That's all we ask.
Oh yeah.
That's all. And he's gone above and beyond that. So let's talk about Drew Pine's play and what you saw from the stands.
We got to see what a veteran quarterback looks like. Somebody that Tommy really is comfortable with calling plays for, guys that's been in there or at least has some experience of a knowledge or a knowledge base of a offensive scheme that he can pull from where they can come together. I got to see a lot of great matchups that they've probably been planning out throughout the week. Using Jaden Thomas, using 87, using Lorenzo Styles to get the one-on-ones that we wanted. Uh, Obviously, there's shortcomings when you don't have the most talented quarterback in the world. But when Drew needed to make throws, he was able to, stand in the pocket and really execute on plays. And I think that's the best thing that I got to see from him. It's just executing. It wasn't like we was just it was banging our head against the wall, getting a bunch of false starts, or not converting or not can't move the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy called the plays, he executed, and when he had to get out of trouble, he could here and there. But that's what we got Drew Pine for. He's a great game manager, and I think with that, you get to see the other guys around him flourish a little bit more. It may not be on a Patrick Mahomes level, but you get to see guys get the ball. It's not like, man, why are we not throwing it to this? It's more like, how are we going to score these amount of points? So I think the fan base, we can be happy with what consistency we can bring with Drew Pine. But I thought overall he made some really good throws and made it a game that was winnable. And I think we was able to put ourselves in position with him to get that done.
So our question of the day to LL Nation is: are you fully confident in this Notre Dame squad? 3-2. We can talk about it. They're not in the top 25. Some people are upset and feel like that they should be in the top 25. I am of the thought that I'm cool waiting. Like, let them run October and get to the place that they need to be in the top 25. All of that window dressing of ranking and stuff. No, no, no. Let me see some more. Let me see this team improve, and let me get a full dominant performance, either against Syracuse, Stanford, or UNLV, and let's gain more confidence. That's where I'm at. I could care less about them being ranked right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, rank, like we said, we have no expectations on the season from trying to win a championship because we know that's not likely at this time. We just want to be able to consistently move up the rankings. If we was 40 last week, hopefully we could be 35. We just want to continue to get one ranking better, one game better, one play better. So by the end of the season, we want to be able to position ourselves for a nice January 6th, maybe Fiesta Bowl, get a redo with Marcus Freeman in there, or just be able to have guys develop and ready on the young side, where you see more guys like Ben Morrison get experience and get ready for what we believe next year could be even more special than what this year is, provided we get the right quarterback situation together.
Your guy, you've been waiting for him to break out. He was one of your candidates for breakout player of the year, going all the way back to the spring. Jaden Thomas, great tweet. Don Merriweather, Tobias Merriweather's father, was sitting next to his mom, and when he caught the touchdown, he just said she broke into tears. And I
Dang,
was
Tommy.
like, yo, though, that's dope. That's a really dope moment for your mom to understand the struggles for a young man to establish himself at Notre Dame, what he's gone through, to finally begin playing time and to just experience success during the Shamrock Series on that stage, prime time. It was a big moment. That was a big moment, and I thought that was really dope for him to tweet that out.
Yeah, man, it's like, dang, man, why I gotta be like he just was in some situation? He just wasn't getting the ball, man.
Yeah.
Like, dang, why I gotta be, obviously it's a great moment, but he should have been having great moments all season. So, I understand the frustration of finally getting your first one, finally feeling like you're relevant in the offense. But man, it is an emotional moment. I'm glad that he got to have that at that time. But hopefully this ain't a flash moment. Hopefully he get touchdowns every week. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
So it's not like he was like, hurt every year and he
Yeah.
couldn't get lucky and he finally got healthy. Now if it was Joe Williams is his name, 15, right? Receive
15, Tobias Merriweather.
not Tobias. I'm sorry, number 5. I'm drawing a blank.
Joe Wilkins.
Joe Wilkins. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah, Joe Wilkins. Now that was Joe Wilkins catching the touchdown.
Yeah.
I can understand the emotion because he's been through a lot of injury. Trying to get back on track. This means a lot. But JT need to get the ball a lot more too. But so this is nothing that I'm just upset that, man, it shouldn't be week 5. We should be hitting the ground rolling, but knowing what we got going on is good to see.
So you were there.
Yes.
Answer the question, because people like to say that Notre Dame receivers don't get any separation. Were Notre Dame receivers open?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just,
open.
So the quarterback was just choosing to focus on one guy.
Well, he knows where he wants to go if he wants some security. I think the confidence will grow now in Jaden Thomas to get him more of the rock. Lorenzo Styles has to get featured a little bit more, but we're asking for a lot. It's only one football out there. We still got a great running game. It's not enough passes sometimes in the game for everybody.
All right, Lucky Lefty podcast. Each and every Monday, we have the Players Lounge where we welcome a former Notre Dame player in to chop it up about the current state of Notre Dame and other things going on in professional and college football. And once again, we welcome in a guest that's been on with us. He was on with us briefly over the summer, talking about a certain topic, but we welcome him back to the show today. None other than former Notre Dame linebacker Pete Bercich, as he joins us on the Lucky Lefty podcast.
Good morning,
Pete. How are you doing?
Morning. I'm good. How are you? Are you guys on Eastern time now? Did they quit doing that whole goofy thing with the, in South Bend area where, I don't know if you guys were even there. You might be in Chicago. Who knows? But you never would change your time. You'd be on Eastern half the year and then on Central. Do they still do that, or is that gone?
I think it still exists just a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because when I go back and forth, I have to make sure that my phone helps me out, because when I get into those zones, it automatically changes to that time zone.
And the problem was, back in the day, your TV shows came on a specific time, and when that time changed, it always messed everything up, right? So nowadays it doesn't matter, because you obviously stream everything and whatnot. So whatever.
Yeah. So, Pete, before we talk Notre Dame, that was a heck of a game you got a chance to call yesterday.
Heck yeah.
It was a fun one. I mean, it was, the beginning of that game, you kind of scratched my head a little bit on what the Bears were trying to do, right? I know that they were struggling to stop the run. They had extra guys, an eighth guy in the box quite a bit, but they were just turning our receivers loose. And you just can't turn JJ loose like that. You just really can't. And Jalen Jones struggled to cover him. Just Jefferson's productivity is he had a good week last week, but in London. But before that, he had a couple weeks where it wasn't really there. And what teams were doing is they were just rolling up, jamming them, and keeping a safety over the top, giving them a lot of that attention. And you had guys like Jeff, I think it's Jeff, but Okudah from Detroit.
Yep.
That guy is good. He is going to be over Warrior. I think is a little long in the tooth, but Okudah, man, he's impressive. And the timing of his jams, the long arms. I mean, he gave JJ a good run for his money. Then you had Slay in Philadelphia. He's obviously a great one. And the Bears don't have that guy, right? The Jalen Johnson's injured. Right. How much help he would have provided, I don't know. But they literally just let him run roughshod. And, first half of the game, you made him pay for it. The second half, they changed the coverage a little bit, played a little two-man, blitzed a little bit, here and there, and then they slowed him down. But, overall, that's like a game we would have lost last year. We've had a couple of those already. So for some reason, we're winning these games. And it's to be 4-1 and to know that our offense can still play better. Our defense is you look at us from a number standpoint, we're either right in the middle or lower, except in points given up, where we're we're 13th. So I think they're making big plays when they need to. They're being very timely with when they're making plays. So overall, a good outing. To sit back, to lose that lead, though, being up 21-3. And we kept saying it on the radio, these Bears have not given up a touchdown in the second half of a football game. That the QB sneak by Cousins was the first second half touchdown the Bears defense has given up all year. So, we're winning these games, man. And to be undefeated at home, to have a game lead this early in the year, because the next time we play you guys, the next time we play Green Bay, it's going to be January. Yeah. It's going to be outside. Right. Who knows what the turf in Soldier Field is going to look like by then?
Awful.
Right? You know what I'm saying? They're like, you guys, if you want to go to Arlington, go ahead. We're done with this grass. We're not touching it. So we could be out there on a skating rink. Who knows? But and so many things change, obviously, the course of the season. But it's good to see Dalvin Cook come back. I mean, Dalvin Cook needed a day like that. He's just a great running back, and we just don't really, I think, have an identity for him yet. What we like to do in the run, what's our running game, what's our go-to type plays. That's kind of in a nutshell.
So let's get into it because you are somewhat an expert at one of the key positions that has been vexing Notre Dame fans over the last 2 to 3 seasons, and that has been the lack of production at the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to ask you, give us linebacking 101, what would you say?
I would say in this day and age, and getting to watch the college film that I do in the off season, the guys that are going into the draft, the college game, it's almost like you have to have two different types of guys. I mean, because some teams you play, they spread you out, and when you play a team that spreads you out, what ends up happening is then you're on sport turf, so the field's faster. They have these gloves now, right, where a throw and a catch is much more routine than it's ever been. So short passes are so much more common. You got to have a guy that can run, and you got to have almost a DB type speed. And then when you play certain teams that do like to put extra tight ends and run the football, then you need someone in there that's going to be physical. And I think especially at the NFL level, that position's been squeezed out. You'd have 7, maybe 8 linebackers on the roster. And I think now it's maybe 4 or 5 that, you have 2 inside guys, and that's really it anymore. You just don't see. I mean, the outside linebackers in a 3-4, they're D linemen anyway, right? They're not linebackers. And so that position is changing. You're seeing more DBs on the field. Teams need 8. You need to be 2 deep across the board in defensive line. You have to be. So you're going into a game activating 8, 9 defensive linemen every single week because you got to keep those guys fresh. And so, if you're the defensive linemen get a lot more play. It's a lot easier to make the NFL as a lineman nowadays, or defensive lineman, than it is a linebacker. And I think you see some of that in college. I mean, I'm not. Ideally, you want to have a guy that can hit and run at the same time, but those guys don't grow on trees, right? It's hard to find. And if you have a guy on defense that can't run, they're going to find a way to get people one-on-one with them and get them in space and take advantage of it. So speed is so important. But you can't just be fast. You've got to have some physicality to you. And then I would think in college level, you can start platooning guys and saying, depending on our opponent, we're going to go with this guy because he can stuff the run. And then we're playing a team that throws the ball a lot, spreads you out. We're going to go with this guy who can run, so we'll see.
Lucky Lefty podcast. Pete Bercich joins us right here. You staying with the linebacker position. When you explain the importance of eye discipline at that position, like you just said, you can be fast, but if you don't trust what you see and then go play, like how fearless do you have to be at the linebacker position to say, this is what I see, I'm running, and if I make a mistake, then I have to trust that the guys behind me have my back.
Right. You can. I don't think there's a position on the field where if you're smart and you read well and instinctive and you have very good technique, meaning footwork, you could make up for more at that position, I think, than anywhere else. And it's no wasted steps. Believing what you see. When you say, Denny Green, you say it all the time, believe what you see. What does that mean? That means as a linebacker, I know exactly what my key is, and that's I'm looking at the first move of the running back and then to the flow side guard. So I got to see a triangle. I got to see all of this. And when I see the back step my way and the guard pull, I've got to go right now over the top. Right. I'm not pausing. And it's almost as if the linebacker position, it's like a half second. You've got to pause, see, and then know what you're going to see. And then once you diagnose it, you go, and you got to go 100 miles an hour. You can't, as a coach, like, it's okay to make mistakes, just make them at 100 miles an hour. Right. Because if everybody's going 100 miles an hour in full go, then we'll make up for it, because your offenses, you're going to see something that you've never seen before. And you got to go back on your rules. And you got to have awareness too, especially in the passing game. You got to know when you have multiple receivers into the boundary, what does that mean, right? You know, you cramming all these receivers to open up this guy over here and open up the field. This, you know, so their best receivers out there in the, you know, wide field, one-on-one. What does that mean, right? And what does it mean that this number of guys in the game as opposed to this guy? And what do teams do in this section of the field as opposed to that section of the field? That goes by down and distance. That goes by personnel group. That goes by, you know, all those things. Hash field, wide field, and if you can carry all that, and that means you have to know the scheme like the back of your hand. That means that the scheme itself is so, you know, it's so well that you can think at that next level. That's when we talk about when people say the game slows down, right? Yeah. It's because you know that, you know, a two-back set, we're in this coverage, and my responsibility is that you know that like the back of your hand. So you can now look at the offense and say, oh, we're getting this, we're getting that, and then anticipate and do something with it. So it's a position that you got to love the game. You got to love watching film. You've got to love reading reports and knowing a team and getting a feel for what they like to do offensively. And if you know all those things, you're going to be in the right spot at the right time, and you're not going to be taken by surprise and all those things. So it's the more you can master that part of the game. And then, like I said, the D lineman, you just got to go. Ball moves, you got to go, right? You key in the shoulder of a guard, and whatever that thing does, I mean, it happens like that. Where at linebacker, you got to kind of, And it's the same thing with the DBs, safeties especially, is you got to know where you are in the field. You got to know who's where. You got to know why because offenses don't line up willy-nilly, right? These guys these two receivers have been spaced out all through the game, and all of a sudden they're a little bit tighter. It's not an accident. There's a reason that they've reduced their split. And when they reduce their split, they do this. They do high-lows. They do crossing routes. When they're wide, then they do clears and outs because they want to do – and just knowing all that before the ball even snaps, that's how you take it to the next level. So, and that comes down to loving the football. You got to love the game, right? You gotta love watching film. You got to love knowing your opponent. You got to love – saying, well, that tackle's foot is flat, it's pass, right? Because he's about 6'7", 6'8". He's real tall, so he can't lower his hips. So when I see that heel flat, I know it's pass, and and then you just have fun with it, right? Yeah. You try to figure it out. Your teammates, you're sitting down watching film and saying, oh, I got this. This is their cadence. This is that, and all those things make a huge difference.
Do you think you have time in the college game with the schedule to get as involved and detailed as how you're describing?
I don't know. And that's a part that concerns me. I know at the professional level, they see, I think the biggest position where that shows up is the offensive line. And that is that these guys, they don't have a whole 20 spring practices and pads to work on just technique, right? You just don't have the time to do it. And I think that's a very relevant point. And I think the other side of that coin is how much do you want to install week in and week out? How much do you want to change defensively and offensively? Because and I learned this from Tony Dungy, who was my coordinator when I was playing, schematically kept things pretty, for the most part, 80-90% of it was consistent. And then we'd have a few tweaks and things here and there, but he would say the reason you lose games is because you have a mental breakdown at a certain play at a certain time. And he wanted us to know the defense well enough where we knew the strengths and the weaknesses of the call. We knew why we were playing cover 2 in this situation instead of cover 8, or why we were playing 3 deep, and what are the weaknesses of 3 deep. And when we're in 3 deep, you want to make them throw it short and to the outside. And so you can't reinvent the wheel every single week. And to your point, I think it's an amazing point. If I'm going in with a bunch of new plays, a new playbook, and I got 30 new offensive plays and 6 new blitzes on defense, you don't have time, right? You spend all your time just getting lined up and knowing where to go. And I think that's a bit of a trap when it comes to coaching, where if you keep it simple and let guys play fast, it makes up for a lot more than you think.
You talk about that. It's amazing because the defense for Notre Dame this year has pretty much kept every offense they've faced below their offensive output from yardage and points per game. And they would have these runs where they look really good and dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And then for like either 2 series or like 10 minutes,
yeah,
all of a sudden you just like you just talked about, you get these brain farts.
yeah.
And it's like, yo, what? Wait a minute. What has happened?
Yeah, and so when you got to ask yourself, when do these things happen? And a lot of times, and we see it at this level, and you see it a lot where you'll have a game that's back and forth, it's very tight, and then all of a sudden, you go up by 2 scores, and then the defense goes, oh, okay, in that little bit of a breath, that little bit of a okay, let's just keep it, let's just keep the thing in front of us, don't get beat deep. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you get, 4 or 5 underneath passes and they go across the field and they end up scoring. So the circumstances of when that happens is key, right? And it's a mentality, right? It's a mentality. Willie Shaw, who's the father of David Shaw, I had the good fortune of working with him here, and he would always say, control what you can control. And you can't control when you take the field as a defense. It could be, we could back them up with a good punt and they start on the 3-yard line, or we could have fumbled the ball on our own 10. It doesn't matter. Just you have to have that same level of consistency, and you can't look at the scoreboard and go, we're up by 2 or 3 scores. Let's just, well, you have to understand though, if you're up by 2 or 3 scores, they're probably not going to run the ball as much, and don't bite on double moves, right? And all these there's a bunch of things that, but that doesn't mean dial it back or take a breath. And,
right.
Unfortunately, I mean, that could be substitution time, right? You get a little bit of a lead, you start sticking in your younger guys, let them get some play, let them get a little bit of experience. So unfortunately, I don't, I haven't studied it, right? And that's kind of how I think you really have to look at it to understand what is really going on. But the mental lapses, is it leadership? Is it that you're a young defense? Is it that we all of a sudden simplify and start playing really base on defense, really vanilla on defense, and getting out of what your game plan was because of the situation? What is it what is the crux of that problem? And sometimes it's as simple as hey, sometimes when an offense gets a play, it's a great throw and catch. There's nothing you can do. Guys are in the right spot. It takes away the confidence a little bit, right? And that affects them. So who knows what that can be, but whatever that is, it's right here. It's not a physical thing. If you can be dominant and play well for 80% of a game, then damn it, if you stick with it and stick with it mentally, especially, you should be able to do it for 100% of the game.
Pete Bercich, former Notre Dame linebacker, joins us right here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. Malik Zaire, Shaun Davis. Before we let you go, Pete, they just finished the Shamrock Series, and Malik was out there, and Allegiant Stadium is it's a fantastic stadium. Fantastic.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
That place is big. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's big.
Huge.
You don't, you go. There's indoor stadiums everywhere, and even like if you go to Vegas, here in Minnesota, whatever, Ford Field in Detroit, but you go out there, it's you drive up and it looks like this big giant aluminum toaster just sitting there, right?
Yeah,
and then you go inside.
Yeah, it's like a box or something.
Yeah, and then you go inside, and then that one end zone is completely is open, right? They can fill it up but there's 100 yards of room that's right. I mean, behind the bleachers, the place is enormous.
Yeah.
And that's the part that sticks out to me every time we go there. You drive around it, you're like, Jesus God Almighty, this place is monstrous. And it's a fun place to play. I was with Denny Green and the Cardinals when I was there for the first preseason game, first game I ever played. It was preseason, but the Cardinals played the Steelers, and the week before, the ownership opened it up and they had all the concession stands opened and let us all go up there and just drink beer and eat nachos and to be on that field. That first game, it was like a fairway, right? It was just perfect. I got to play the golf course that opened up at Notre Dame, the new one.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Oh,
new.
yeah.
It wasn't the one on campus, the one. And I got to play the first day that was open. And to play on a golf course that had no divots. You know what I mean? It was immaculate. It was just like that there. But that's a memorable moment, right? You're always going to remember. And that's kind of what college is all about, really. You know, we got to go to Hawaii to play a game. It's like, man, you'll always remember that trip to Hawaii. You always remember those trips overseas. You always remember being able to play at stadiums like that. So I'm glad they do it for them. I heard the uniforms were really cool that they wore. I saw it with I'm on a text string with a bunch of my old teammates and Oliver Gibson and Bryant Young and Lake Dawson and I mean a bunch of guys, right? And they were loving the uniforms. So I didn't get a chance to see them, but I heard they were all right.
Do you think Coach Holtz would have ever allowed you guys to wear?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Listen to me now. I wish they would bring back those cutoff uniforms because I think that of all the jerseys I have from '92, we still had the old school cutoff ones.
Yeah.
And then we went to the full length ones, and then we started wearing these pro socks, meaning they were white and then they had blue on the top, right? So Bobby Taylor and some of the DBs, Tommy Carter, they started taping their shoes and then taping all the white, so it just went black to blue. And I remember after one of the games, Lou, on Sunday or Monday, whatever, got up and said, the only guys that could tape their shoes, you have to have permission by the trainers or from me to tape your shoes because we can't see anything white on the socks, and the alumni don't like it.
Oh, it's an alumni.
And we're like, what's the flying F what the alumni think, right? This is, and I get the whole uniform thing, and I get that. I understand that. But to be able to let them just make it their own, right? Just a little tweak. We're not talking about, wearing different colored socks or having tights on instead of what. No, it was just let's just let them put the tape up a little bit. It's like, anyway. I mean, the whole thing with Lou was, they're called uniforms. Why are they called uniforms? It's because everybody looks the same. They're all the same. That's why they're uniforms, right? And so I remember, it's like, come on, throw us a bone, will you? Just let us have a little fun with this. But it was not to be. But absolutely not. None of that would have. The uniform change. Yeah, it would have been if he was still around, you'd still be. Your uniforms would look the same, right? But whatever. I mean, it's a tough thing. College football, man. I don't know. I mean, Southern Cal, Penn State, some places, Ohio State, they've kept things and left them the same, right? So then are you either going to be Oregon or are you going to be Penn State? What's it going to be? One or the other, right?
One or the other.
You want to go have fun with it, kid, and do those kinds of things. I don't know, man. Under Armour and those guys are making a hell of a lot of money on it. So what was
important to you when you were going through the recruitment, though? Because now it's about the glitz and glamour, but what for you was the important about the recruitment? Because it's different now.
Yeah, it is.
NIL.
No, it is. I remember, and that's a great question because I remember the schools that I went to Stanford and visited Stanford. And back then, you had to be accepted. You had to do the whole application and be accepted before you could make an official visit. Denny Green was the head coach out there, and I loved Stanford, loved it. I wanted to go to a good school, and because I knew that if something happened with football, my dad played in the NFL. He was on the original Dallas Cowboys team. He played for 2.5 seasons, hurt his knee, and then was done. And so I'm like, I want to make sure I have something to fall back on. So I visited Stanford, and I loved it, but it was just too far away. And back then, it's just too far away. And then there was Notre Dame, which had the best of both worlds. You got a great education, and it's a winning football program. I went to Illinois because I'm from Illinois, wanted to go there. And the one place I wanted to go, and I didn't get a chance to, was Miami. Because when Miami called me and started recruiting me, I'm like, I want to go to Miami. I'm like, I want to get the hell out of Chicago, and I want to go to Miami. You know what I mean? And I've ever since I've loved the University of Miami. I know we're not supposed to like them.
Right. But
I just like Michigan. My dad went to Michigan State, so I grew up hating Michigan. I still hate Michigan. And so that's my team that I don't like, but I love Miami, man. Those guys are that school. the uniforms, the whole thing. For whatever reason, I just, if I could do it all over again, I think maybe I'll go to Miami.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
No
Pete
regrets.
Bercich on South Beach back in the 90s?
Oh, it would have been, it would have been culture shock, right? But you look, it's the one thing, like just like your point, it's the one time in your life, man, that you can, you get to make that kind of decision, and it's obviously a huge deal. But for me, it was school and playing winning football, and so at that time, Notre Dame had won it in '88, they were in it in '89, and Rocket Ismail and all those guys that were there that were just unbelievable football players, Ricky Waters, and I mean, I could sit here for a half hour and talk about, the guys that were there. But Todd Light, I mean, you go watch them practice in your recruiting trip, and you're like, these dudes, these are men here.
Yeah.
These dudes, they're not messing around, right? This is the best of the best, and I wanted to be part of that, and that's why I chose Notre Dame. But definitely wasn't for the weather.
Yeah, especially
it definitely wasn't because South Bend was a great place to spend a summer vacation, right?
At all.
Well, Pete, we
Anyway.
thank you so much for joining us today, man. I have to ask you this, man, especially with today's news about Matt Rule. Are you shocked that the business of football, college and pro, has gotten to the point where teams and institutions are so quick to just get rid of coaches like before you even get halfway through a season? It's like this is uncharted territory, and I've never seen it the axe fall as fast as it's been falling.
It's unfortunate, I think, and I think that programs that are now, there's reasons sometimes guys get fired, right? There's egregious things they do, and you got to get rid of them. That's that's one thing. But teams that the schools and even in the NFL, where you see a lot of turnover, the longer that schools go, or especially in the NFL, that teams go without winning, I think the higher up the problem is, right? It's not just the players, and it's not just the coaches. It's you're because every time you turn over a franchise, you've got new scouts, you've got new everything. And like here with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the GM, I mean, those guys, they deal with everything from the media side to, I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of what falls under their umbrella. But when you're a school and you're constantly turning things over, you're constantly changing your recruiting, you're constantly changing how you recruit. And I just don't think it's good. And I don't think a program, just by hiring and firing and spinning the dial and hoping you get some guy that sticks and wins, if that, when those things happen, it's like you won maybe out of luck. It's not the ideal way to run a program, and you got to be patient. You got to spend that time up front. And the other problem I think with college is that so many people have stake in who gets hired. So many people that don't know anything about the game itself. Right. And you have all these boards and this group over here and that group over here, and all these people have to buy in. And it's like, you guys, I mean, thanks for the input. And yeah, you guys have donated money and you supported the school. But when it comes to these kinds of decisions, you need to let the athletic directors and those people that know what's going on make those decisions. And when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, you end up getting the guy that's checks all the boxes, but you got to fire him in 3 weeks.
Right.
So anyway, that's my that's just my 2 cents.
You got a bye week coming up. Are you getting back down to a game this year?
No, I'm staying in Miami.
That's right. Yeah,
we
you
play
were
the
serious.
Dolphins. I'm heading down Miami on Thursday, right? My fiance and I are like, we're going down Thursday, and we're staying afterwards. And I may not come back. I might just stay down there. I don't know.
That's right.
We'll see.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We're going to take a little time and take a little break. So, unfortunately, I don't get to watch much college football at all, and it's just too much film, too much, we're traveling on Saturdays, and it's every once in a while I'll get to catch a game, but really it's this is a full-time bit here and just too much. So keep up the fight. Good to see you guys are staying on them. Hold them accountable, man. Right? Hold them accountable. Don't let them. Hold their feet to the fire. They get paid a lot of money. Everybody's doing just fine. You know what I mean? Don't tell me you got school and football. I get it. It's hard. It's not easy. You guys been through it, right? You did it. Yeah. Just go do your job. Just make a tackle when you're supposed to make a tackle. To quit worrying about how your uniform looks. just go play. Yeah. Anyway, so stay on them.
We will, Pete. We appreciate you, my man. Be safe, safe travel.
Yeah,
have a great rest of the season.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Once again, Pete Bercich, former Notre Dame linebacker, here with us on the Lucky Lefty podcast. Hey, he told us to keep them. Hey, put their feet to the fire. That's what we do. That's what we do here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. We spin it different. Now, tell me, you were getting a lot of love out there in the desert.
A lot of love out in the desert
about the podcast.
Hey, a lot of people in the chat showed up to the event, showed up to the game. Yeah, told me about that y'all was out here, man. Look, very impressed with the showing, man. I'm glad that we can provide, that the right amount of truth that you guys been looking for, and you tuning in, and we appreciate that, man. Honestly.
Lucky Lefty podcast on the climb at 3,000 and just over a year. The reason we're so successful is because of you. And that's why we're here every day, making sure that we spin it different. Give me your lasting impressions from Saturday's game. There's no need to really break it down. It went the way we thought. We thought Notre Dame was going to end up winning, but probably would need to would probably leave some points and on the field, and they did that. But how confident are you right now, bro? I mean, Stanford on the horizon. How confident are you?
Pretty confident. Just another game for us to be in a good matchup situation and for us to also get another win. I think every game we're looking at this season as 0-0, and we're putting it all out on the line, trying to get these wins and stack the wins together. Like I said, this is about recruiting. Our Super Bowl is November 5th.
Facts.
This season is about recruiting. So that means that we have to win all these games in order to have a resume to show these recruits you coming into a good situation, you coming in where there's holes that can be filled to build on, and you coming into a program that is missing a few pieces from being right where they want to be. So, yeah, November 5th is what I'm looking forward to, but right now we're on a good trajectory of getting prepared for that.
The fact we're at the point where it's like, you know what? Man, look, don't talk to me about October. Like, you feel like that should be a foregone conclusion. And the fact that we're there, as opposed to a month ago after that Marshall game where we were like, yo, it's all bad right now. Like, it's all bad. You have to feel good about the way this team, this coaching staff, and the totality of the program has been able to persevere through the first set of adversity facing this new group and get to this point. Notre Dame media did a great job in posting certain things. I saw it live on the broadcast. They were preparing for the 4th and 1 late in the game. Marcus Freeman walks up to Isaiah Foskey, says something, and then looks dead at Jason Adamiola and says something else. And Notre Dame media, they were able to capture them, Marcus Freeman and Adamiola, on the sidelines immediately after they got the stop on 4th and 1. And as he walked up to Jason Adamiola, he looked at coach and said, I told you, I got you. I told you, I got you. And I'm like, that's what you like to see from your best players.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter, need to step up. Your best players on both sides of the ball need to make plays. That was absent in the first 2 games. That's been corrected since then.
And that's what you want to see, man. Guys that want to play for their coach, and that's evident. These guys want to put on the line and make Marcus Freeman proud. That's why Isaiah Foskey came back. Jason Adamiola wants to boost not only his stock but continue to help this team win. And I think the guys are seeing the benefit of when playing together under this defense can do, and we can turn it on when we need to and make plays when we have to.
Yeah, I see a lot of people like Irish Mills. I got Deborah Thomas said as well. Syracuse not an easy dub. Let's not look past them, especially if they can win half against North Carolina State and Clemson, or one of two. I'm sorry. Look, man, you might not like me when I say this. I don't give a darn about Syracuse. That program is nowhere near the program or the level of the program that Notre Dame is.
Nope.
I fully expect Notre Dame to go into that game and win that game. Period.
Without a doubt.
Period. If Notre Dame plays the way they played the first two games, they can lose to anybody in October. If Notre Dame plays the way they played against BYU, Syracuse doesn't stand a chance.
That's right.
Period, point blank. As we've said, from after the Marshall game, the rest of the season will be about how Notre Dame plays. Has nothing to do with the opponent.
Nothing to do with the opponent.
When Notre Dame comes to play, they will thrash Syracuse. Thrash them. And what have we said? Each week, they've gotten better. If they get better, they're going to decimate Stanford. If they get better from Stanford, they're going to. It's all about the Super Bowl that is November 5th. That's the true test. And if they happen to slip up, it's because they didn't bring it.
That's it.
It's on them. It's flat out on them. Lucky Lefty Podcast. So we appreciate you guys for joining in today. We'll dig more into the game and Marcus Freeman's press conference. We'll do that a little bit tomorrow, Left. We had to get the Players Lounge going, and we definitely wanted to talk about the main things, which was Michael Mayer, the performance of Drew Pine. And I'll dig up that video of Pete talking about linebacking one-on-one, because I thought some of the things he talked about in there were very interesting.
Put some game out there.
Insightful. Yeah, it was very insightful. And tomorrow we might discuss, is it the coaching or is it the players? Because, like I said, when you need a thumper that can run. Well, heck, that's Niles Morgan. That's Manti Te'o. That's Jalen. That's Tavon Comey. That's Drew Tranquil. Like, when you get used to having those guys at Notre Dame, and then you have this drop-off, you're just like, yo, what's going on? But I'm sure you're going to tell me tomorrow that there's a guy on the roster that you got to watch up close and personal that can do that. Exactly what Pete Bercich was talking about. You know what time it is.
Petticoat, Petticoat Junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic Petty Junction?
Petty Junction. Petty story today. Someone said or did something super petty. Brought to you by Onora Whisky, OnoraWhisky.com, and Premium American Whiskey, OnoraWhisky.com. Bro, I have to start with what we saw over the weekend. Alabama State versus Jackson State. Alabama State's homecoming. The legacy Eddie Robinson Jr., head coach at Alabama State. Deion Sanders. Both of y'all going to petty train. Like, man, what are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
He's not swag. If I'm not swag, then who's swag? All of that foolishness, man. Stop.
Yeah. Hey, did you see the video he put out? What really happened? Going to Alabama, and he put the music behind it.
Dude, and the Alabama State players, the language towards the head coach.
Crazy,
man, look. And then during the game, Alabama State wide receiver referring to a female Jackson State coach as a water girl. Just like the whole situation was just,
this is like BET college football, man.
It's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But it's more entertaining than watching Ohio State versus Toledo, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous. Like everybody involved, it was way too much. It was a great game. I understand Prime is talking crazy, but yeah, Prime is like, you had the nerve to put me on your schedule for homecoming. You're gonna take the L. And they took the L. So it is what it is.
Yeah, what?
You know what? It's just I'm amazed that homecoming.
Is that offending?
No, I'm just amazed that it's such a stark difference between homecoming at HBCUs as opposed to, PWI institutions.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought they would be fired either way. And to me, because it's all about putting on events, alumni, and having it cracking.
Having it cracking.
And the fact that most people admit that if you go to, like, I'm heading up to DC the weekend of the 20th, and I'll be in DC during Howard's homecoming. I'm going outside, bro. I'm definitely going outside to enjoy that weekend. So it's just an interesting thing to point out, man. Let's get to some of these questions. Shaun Malik, is Drew looking in on not Myers? I'm tweaking. Michael Mayer.
Too playing like Michael Myers out there.
Look at the wide receivers. Like I said, you were there. You said wide receivers were open all game. Even if that ball wasn't tipped, it probably more than likely still had a chance of being intercepted in the fourth quarter. So is he eyeing, is he staring down Michael Mayer too much?
Listen, if Drew Pine gets it done that way, then let him get it done that way.
Hey, fam, if I had 87, I'm feeding that dude the ball. He would have like 15 targets easy again.
Yeah, like,
I can't front.
Look, why would we not use him as much as we trying to?
I can't front.
Come on now.
If
he's locking on to him and he's throwing blatant picks, then yeah. But if we win in and he throw it to him 50,000 times, okay. We got 87. I think, in fact, we should, until we get a great quarterback, go back to having the Michael Floyd receiving unit where we get one superstar receiver, a bunch of role players, 3-star, 2-star guys, and give the guy 1,000 receptions in a career.
Shaun Malik, how do you feel with them using Cozy and Tobias as decoys?
That's what I'm saying.
Shout out. Yeah, go ahead.
We play offensively like we only got one receiver, one running back. So, if anything, I would invest a lot in trying to get one superstar. It's like a Cardinal Tate.
Mm-hmm.
Tell all my other receivers, look, we got one a year. I mean, that's how we was doing under Brian Kelly until this whole passing thing came into play.
Yeah.
Where we always knew our number one. We had Michael Floyd, Eifert, T.J. Jones, was supposed to be DeVaris, Will, and then we had a bunch of support players. Now we just got a bunch of really good, talented receivers that are just frustrated because they all could be a number 1B kind of receiver.
Yeah.
But we don't have the quarterback to be giving it out like that either.
G_no. I hate the fact that he said, talking about Jason Garrett, the wide receivers don't get love at Notre Dame. But if you're a tight end, this is the school for you. I pointed that out, bro. Like, you can't say that. Like, what are you doing? Like, somebody needs to say in his ear, like, yo, don't.
Are you with us or against us?
Yes. Don't ever say that on national TV with recruits watching.
You already said that. You already said our quarterback's a generic wildcat guy. Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's been pretty bad. 2K grind 09. First NFL stadium I smoked weed at with other indie fans.
I mean, that's community right there.
Shout out to Legion. And I got Matt Harrell. Morning, LL. Good morning, Matt. I'll be confident when they stop letting the big plays happen.
Oh, we gonna do that. We gonna get them big plays. 3rd and 13. That's a special for us. Just get a crazy first down. You be like, oh my goodness.
Rob Tidoff, we finish off with you, my brother. Thank you for tapping in today, Shaun and Malik. Your opinion on the 2-point conversion attempt early in the game. I always say do not try it unless you have to.
Man, my opinion on that is that anytime it doesn't work, it's always what could have happened. You know, if it worked, it would have been the greatest call ever. So, whatever.
Hey, you know what? For me, we were better than BYU, man. I don't care. Y'all want to try for 2 every possession? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You're better than them.
We're better than them.
You're better than them. Like, I don't care what the record says. I don't care about the struggles. I don't care about the Marshall loss. The mentality should be,
if we want to try it, we're going to do it.
Yes. And if you looked at the way, honestly, BYU coached the game, they felt like Notre Dame was better than them.
Yes.
From a talent, because they were very passive with the way they coached the game.
Yeah.
You got Jaron Hall being passive in the first half.
Yeah,
man, look, that's the way I feel. Like, things are bad, but you still have to feel like, yo, we're Notre Dame, and we're better than you. And we're going to come out and kick your butt. That's what we're going to do.
No apologies.
No apologies, man. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Monday. Make sure you spend it different. We'll dig deeper into Notre Dame linebackers and what really happened against BYU on tomorrow. All right?